Welcome to highlights of Stage 5 of the Vuelta A Espana. It's time for the team time trial, starting and finishing in Figueras, in the shadow of the Salvador Dali Museum. Specialist tech on offer. Jonas Vingegaard making sure that he was fully warmed up and ready for the job at hand. And this man in red, David Gaudu, had a big job to do. Let's take a look at the circuit. 24.1 kilometres starting and finishing in Figueras, but not too much elevation at all. In fact, only 86 metres of elevation, meaning this was going to be fast. A headwind out and primarily a tailwind back. The first team off the ramp were Lotto, and the Belgian team were to set a very respectable time, which would see them in the hot seat for quite a long period. There we go, 55.9 k an hour, and they set the benchmark, 25.53.28. But next off the ramp, the American squad of Lidl Trek, led by Mads Pedersen in the green jersey there, the powerhouse TT specialist as well as a classics man, leading this team. Dan Uller at the back, remember he won a stage of the Giro D'Italia in the time trial and is of course the Dutch TT champion, but leading through the first intermediate split. But to Carlos Verona shortly afterwards, he'd just done his final turn, came to grief. Thankfully, he was okay. Also, Andrea Baggioli doing his job too. But they were to set the fastest time at the finish by 18 seconds, moving themselves into the hot seat, an average speed of 56.5 k an hour. So it was goodbye, Lotto. Then another fast time was set by Q36.5. Tom Pidcock's hopes still very much alive after a solid performance from them. Only 13 seconds down. So Tom Pidcock thinking ahead. This was his first team time trial at this level. Movistar were to set a good time as well. The only Spanish World Tour team. Had a few specialists amongst their number. It wasn't without incident though. Ola went agricultural coming into a right-hand bend. He was then dropped from the squad. Thankfully he kept his bike upright. But despite that very difficult incident, they were to set a quick time. Only 8 seconds down, good enough for second place at that point. 56.2 k an hour average. Next up with the Ineos Grenadiers. Of course, so important for the hopes of Egan Bernal. They did a good time and they were led by the mighty powerhouse that is Pipo Ganna. Bob Jungels there, the Luxembourg TT champion, and Egan Bernal himself a champion of his home country. They led at the first intermediate split but faded a little. They were reduced to 4 riders in the closing stages and they weren't to go quite as quick as Lidl Trek. It was a very good time by the Ineos Grenadiers, but in the end 7 seconds slower than the Americans, and it was a sigh of relief collectively for Lidl Trek. Next up, Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, Jai Hindley's hopes, and also Giulio Pellizzari, an outside bet for this squad. They've got so much R&D behind their TT setup. One of the teams on the bleeding edge, but there was an awful incident. Mateo Sobrera overlapped the wheel and crashed. Thankfully, he was to regain his feet. He did finish, but despite that, this was a magnificent time set by Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, only 3 seconds slower than Lidl Trek, despite that crash, for an average speed of 56.4. Another big sigh of relief there for Lidl Trek. UAE Team Emirates were expected to set a very quick time, and they were hot off the ramp. The man in the white jersey, Juan Ayuso, riding on home soil for the first time in this race, led them down and out of the start house. They were down at the first intermediate split, but then started to pick up. They went faster and faster as the race went on. Former Aussie TT champion Jay Vine did his bit, but as they came down the finishing straight, it was a superb performance. Only 4 riders left. Optimal but super quick, 56.8 k's an hour, moving them into the hot seat, which Lidl Trek unhappily had to vacate. Still a great ride by the American team. They could be happy with that. Penultimate team off the start ramp, Team Visma Lease bike. The former winner of this race at the back there, Sepp Kuss, Matteo Jorgensen, Victor Campenaerts, and there in the red helmet, Jonas Vingegaard, looking to try and place himself back into the leader's jersey. They didn't have it their own way. At the first intermediate split, they were several seconds down. In fact, 18 seconds shy of the best time being set by Lidl Trek, giving them a lot of work to do. But in the closing stages, they really did pick up the pace, brought back the time. It wasn't going to be good enough for the win, but it was good enough in the end for second place on the day, only 8 seconds shy of the time set by UAE Team Emirates, with only 1 team to finish. Big smiles there from João Almeida. And meanwhile, Jonas Vingegaard was questioning whether he'd done enough to move into the lead. The final team off the ramp were the team of David Gaudu, the man in the red jersey. For the first time in his career, 3 stage wins in the Vuelta now. And this was to be a race of truth, spearheaded by the European former TT champion Stefan Kung. But they had a big job to do to stay on terms. But it was a very respectable ride by Groupama FDJ. It wasn't going to be the win, but it was a top 10 ride, 9th place on the day. But it was all about UAE. Well, football-style celebrations for UAE Team Emirates ex-RG. A strong collective performance in one of the most specialist disciplines, moving them into the lead. UAE Team Emirates then taking the stage ahead of Team Visma Lease bike. Little Trek in 3rd, Red Bull 4th, 5th Ineos Grenadiers, 10th place was Lotto.
We knew we would be fighting for the win, but there's a lot of good teams here and we need to be realistic. But yeah, I think we did a really perfect job and we deserve it as well.
Is it even better to not have the red jersey today, but maybe on your home stage you can have it tomorrow?
I mean, I would like to have it actually. It's a beautiful jersey. I never wore it before, so it would be nice to wear it for the first time. It doesn't matter when, so... but yeah, we are closer and closer to it. Let's see, maybe one day we grab it, maybe not, we'll know. But we'll give everything we have.
A confident-sounding João Almeida, but Jonas Vingegaard moved back into the race lead ahead of Ayuso and Almeida, and indeed Marc Soler, only 8 seconds down. So a change in the general classification. The first time, in fact, that this man, Jonas Vingegaard, has lost a leader's jersey and then regained it again. But it's looking good ahead of his favoured mountains. And this what's next on the menu. We start in Olot on stage 6 and we finish in Pal Andorra. 170 kilometres, and it's the first proper rendezvous with the mountains. 3,500 metres of elevation, finishing on the climb to Pal Andorra. It should be our first true test of who has brought their climbing legs to this edition of La Vuelta.